Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to look at my bullet journal supplies for 2022. If you haven't already, please don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and let's jump right into it. I'm so excited. So of course, my number one bullet journal supply is my bullet journal, and I've raved about this notebook for so long, but I'm gonna repeat myself anyways. It was from the dollar store, super affordable, love the paper, and yeah, you don't need expensive things, you know? So this is my pen case. It is also another must. I've had this pen case since I was in grade 4. Inside, it's a little ratchet and like stained from markers and pens, so we're not going to talk about that, but it is good to just have one consolidated place with all your supplies. I make customized bullet journals, so it's good for me just to have something in reach so I don't have to mess up my desk area every time I do a page or leave my desk area a mess, which is even worse. Next, I have a ruler, and I use my ruler to draw straight lines when I make videos, because I do know how to make straight lines without a ruler, but just doesn't work on video. I promise. And also having a metal ruler in specific is good for when you use an X-Acto knife to cut things. Next, we have this pencil and eraser. I'm not too specific on the type of pencil and eraser that I use for bullet journaling. It is a whole other category when we talk about art and doodling and sketching, that type of art, because then I am very specific on the pencil and eraser I use. But for now, this pencil and eraser are just what I happen to have on hand. It is an Energize pencil in 0.7 and the normal Staedtler Mars plastic erasers. So yeah, they work. Next, we have scissors. Once again, I've had these scissors since literally grade 4, came with the pen case, and they're just good because when I want to make pop-up Dutch doors and tabs, it's there for me. And if you want to know more, subscribe, because, I'm going to talk about that stuff way later on. Next, we have some not mild liners, fine liners. Oh my gosh. These are fine liners. I have a range, but I'm not too specific on the brands for my bullet nibs. So for my bullet nibs, I have a 005 micron, and I have a 0.5 Staedtler pigment micron. I keep on saying micron. I meant Staedtler pigment fine liner. And I just like having something that's thick and something that's thin. Now this is my Tombow Fudenosuke brush. I have two pens like this. One is hard tip, one is soft tip, and I live by them. Literally, if I had to pick one fine liner, there I said it, finally, I would pick the Tombow Fudenosuke because you can get such line variations. In addition to that, the good news about these fine liners that I just showed you is that they are archival, black pigment, and what else? Waterproof, which is good for when you do all sorts of art. Sometimes I like to paint in my bullet journals, so definitely really good for outlining in that type of situation. I don't always use archival ink, but we'll get to that in a second. Well, actually, not a second, right now. Right now, I'm showing you my fountain pen. This is something from Wordsworth & Co., I believe. It's very cheap. When I say cheap, I mean people say Lamy Safari pens are cheap, but this is even cheaper. Love it. It works like a gem. It is my first kind of real fountain pen, and I have some Lamy ink in it that is water soluble. Is that the word? It's not waterproof, so I use this for writing mainly, and I love it. It makes me feel so fancy and so bougie. Next, we have my Pilot fine liner. Now, this is my only fine liner that I have with me right now that is not waterproof, and I don't think it's archival. And this is the pen that I use when I know I don't need to worry about something lasting, for example, the days of the week on my calendar, because I know that I always start on Sunday and end on Saturday, and it's just nice to have something cheaper that you don't have to worry about wasting the ink in, Next, we have my white gel pen. So this is a 0.5 jelly roll. It's amazing. I love it. I'm also okay with using the Uniball Signo. I just don't happen to have that on me right now. Now, this is the Posca pens. Oh my gosh, the Posca paint pens. If you have never used a Posca paint pen, you gotta. It's like a life changer, especially if the Posca paint pen that you're using is white. I have all 3 sizes of the white. The former 2 sizes are small and the nibs are beautiful looking. I barely use them, but this big chunky one I've had for maybe 4 years, 5 years even, and it's been thoroughly used in every type of journal that I have because it's just nice to have that contrast, and these white pens are so perfect to add that like pop in your bullet journal, something that you don't normally do. It's great. Here I'm testing out my gel pen and my big Posca. I am sorry if you can hear that. Snow issues outside, as you would probably assume if you have snow. Anyways, it takes a second for fine liners and Posca pens to kind of become opaque on the paper, but they are opaque. Next, we have these Studio Markers, fine liners? No, not fine liners, liners. I'm not sure what to call this. I'm going to call them markers. They are by Studio. They are gold and silver, and I love them to death. They are the cheapest pens in this variation that I can find, and I tried to spin my pen and it failed. And I actually knocked my tripod over, but like, we're not going to talk about that. Anyways, you can see here that the nibs on the pens are really thick, but if you write really softly, then you can get kind of a thinner line. So it's good for that reason. I just love them. Love them, love them. And I think they're like acrylic paint because everything just kind of seeps through. Next, we have these Tombow dual brush pens. If you have been with the bullet journaling community for any amount of time, you've probably seen them. I love them and I hate them. At one point I wanted all the colors, but they are quite expensive. The numbers kind of rack up. They have 1 bullet size and 1 brush pen, and the brush pen on my black pen is kind of iffy. I've had these 2 pens for years as well, so kind of iffy, and I love the gray. Oh my gosh, if I had to recommend one Tombow, one starter Tombow, it would be the gray one, because gray is good for sketching and it's good for bullet journaling, and literally gray is just such, I don't know, like it's just such an amazing shade. Are y'all one of those people that say gray is a shade and not a color? Anyways, next we have these Artist Loft dual brush pens. I feel like they're a ripoff off of the Tombow brush pens. It doesn't matter to me. They're cheaper. They are the same consistency, and I actually love the colors. At first, when I first got these, I was like, what are these colors? I'm never gonna use them. But I literally use these pens for note-taking, for art, and when I say art, I keep on thinking like the visual art, like the sketching and drawing and painting thing, but I mean bullet journaling is an art itself, and there are so many forms. But anyways, just wanted to let y'all know that. But yeah, I use these pens for everything, and they are once again a very cheap alternative to the Tombow pens, so I love them, and you know, they work. So yeah, and I've had these pens for 4 years, so they do last a long time, if you're ever wondering like how long these supplies last. And oh my gosh, these fine liners are not waterproof, and they are no name, I think. I've had them for years. I've had them like longer than I've had my scissors, and I have no idea where they're from, but this color variation I'm showing you right now is pretty much half of all the colors I have left. Over the years, many of the colors like died out, so I've thrown them away, but these ones are going solid. So I also wanted to say that if you are looking for an alternative to those fine liners, there's also the Stabilo and the Staedtler fine liners. The Staedtler fine liners look pretty similar to the ones that I just showed you. Next, we have these Crayola markers. I mean, y'all already know Crayola. I talk about them because they are such a cheap water-based marker that you can use in your bullet journal and have them not bleed through unless you're using printer paper, like I am using printer paper in this video. Then they do bleed through, and it gets really annoying. But yeah, and you saw all the same colors in that jar, and that's because the dual colors are the ones that have survived over the years. Next, we have my Zebra mild liners, and This brown one is my favorite. You can see here that the brown fine end tip has a line across it, but none of the other 3 that I showed you have a line across it, so I don't know if that means that my other liners are like fake or something. I got them in a bookstore, so who knows, but I love them. Mainly I love them for their pastel colors. Like, I know that Tombow now has pastel dual brush pens, but for me those are just a nice color and option. So yeah, you don't really need them, but I love them because of the colors. Next we have stamps, and I love botanical stamps because I do a lot of botanicals in pretty much every customized bullet journal that I make. Even the journals that I make for myself, I have at least one botanical in them, in these spreads, in the monthly journal spreads, and I just love botanicals, and I think these stamps are going to be so fun to play with. Mainly I got this bullet journal stamp for, actually not a bullet journal, but for just journaling in general, but I'm going to be using them in my bullet journal because they're awesome, and they are silicone, if y'all were wondering. And these stamps right here, these calendar stamps, are also silicone, and while I got these off Amazon for a decent price, I'm not sure I actually recommend them, and here's why. So one of the calendar silicone stamps that I have, most of them actually, have no border, as you can see here. But then there's this one calendar that does have a border, and you can't get out of using it because it's the only stamp of its kind, if that makes sense. So it's really annoying. So yeah. Next we have the ink pad. This ink pad is once again really old. It was a hand-me-down from who knows when. The ink pad company does not exist anymore. The ink pad does not exist anymore, and it's dye-based. Yeah. The only thing I have to say about dye-based is, if you're ever looking for an ink, dye-based is pretty great because it doesn't stain your stamps. Look at my calendar spreads stamps that have an orange pigment to them. Yeah, that's from pigment ink. So yeah, dye-based 100% go. And yeah, that is pretty much all my supplies. I don't use them for every bullet journal spread that I use, but I use them for most. And once again, I love them because I've had most of these art supplies for years, so they have lasted me such a long time. They have been a great investment, but you can totally get off with not using all of them. Oh, and most of the time I use these supplies for other things too, like not just bullet journaling, but like for art and art and other fun things. So yeah, that is my bullet journal supplies for 2022. They all kind of fit in my pen case, as you can see, and I love them. If you haven't already, please don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. And yeah, thank you. Bye!